Ready to bum.
Hello, Probers.
Howdy, howdy.
As you just heard there, Kev is ready to bum. Welcome to But It Was Aliens.
Hold on, you're not going to give any context to that.
Nope. The only extraterrestrial comedy podcast brought to you by two former Mibs. I'm your host this week, King of the Street Grannies and the bestest of best friends, Granny Moonwalker.
Aye.
And alongside me, as always, is the king of the grey nuts, the pope of the bearded folk, the Gimli of tall folk, Kevin fucking Greybeard.
Oh, we're dropping an F-bomb into my name.
Normally, I give Kevin a lot of shit.
I'd say always, actually, but continue.
Normally, I will give Kevin a lot of shit. Not because I'm horrible, because that's what the bestest of best friends do. But today, I'm going to be nice to him. Which is more than likely going to put him on edge, but I'm not sure why. Because when I say I'm going to be nice, I really mean it. And I am not concocting anything sinister in the back of my mind.
Accurate statement. I'm incredibly on edge all of a sudden. What have we got coming up today? Is it like a probe into me? Ready to bum?
Nope. Today, you handsome bastard.
The whole episode better not be filled with stupid compliments.
Why are they stupid?
We'll see. We shall see. Kevin has lovely shins.
Today, you handsome bastard, we are heading somewhere hot.
As hot as me? Or hotter than me? Or less hot than me?
Less hot than you, and less hot than your carbs. The location is Spain. The year is 1979. The date is November 11th. The time is around 11 o'clock. So already we have the location, year, date, and rough estimate of time. So you know evidence is on deck.
You haven't presented me any details other than a date so far. That's a bold statement.
A cigar-shaped object with wings.
The 11th of the 11th at 11. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm in.
Evidence. A cigar-shaped object with wings, better known as a plane, was leaving Salzburg Airport in Austria. Now, this isn't just any plane, Kevin. This is the TAE Super Caravel Airliner Flight JK-297.
What makes it super?
And there I've given you a picture of an extremely similar plane.
A TAE fighter. Or a TAE flighter, if you will. Okay, do you know what else is cigar-shaped and has wings?
Another plane?
A dragonfly, biatch. What about like a dildo with balls on the bottom? From the angle, that could... one of those ones you plug on the table.
I don't know the ones you plug
Our
on the
friend
table.
in Lincolnshire used to have one of those on his wardrobe. Just stuck on there. 100% true.
I don't want to know why he had it.
Do you want to know its name?
Oh my god.
You do, don't you?
Go on.
The Black Mamba. Prob. I don't think I ever questioned why it was there. So, that makes sense. TAE flighter on the 11th of the 11th. Haven't really given me
Around 11.
any details to go with here other than we've got a plane, so I don't know why I'm debating this so hard in my head already. What could it mean? Commercial airliner though, yeah? Mm-hmm. Right.
This flight was heading from Salzburg to Las Palmas.
Ooh.
This flight today would take around 5 hours and is 2,059 miles.
Ooh.
Probably would have taken a bit longer back then, and just to give a little bit of perspective, it would take you around 56 hours to drive it and would be just under 4,000 kilometers. 56 hours? That sounds like a challenge.
Road trip.
Once the plane had left It stopped off at Mallorca to refuel, and once it had completed that task, it took off en route to its destination. Cool, calm and collected, just like the man sitting opposite me. Soon, they would receive a transmission from the Barcelona control tower. This transmission was a request that they switch their radio over to the emergency frequency. This was because an emergency signal had been detected. As Captain Javier Lador de Tejeda switched frequency, the navigator claimed that there was something to the left of their plane.
Well, that's deadly interesting. The implication here being, I assume, as we are on But It Was Aliens, that we have an alien flying beside a plane that has learnt which frequency would get attention. Now, were they looking for attention, or were they actually having an emergency and they wanted help and they knew which frequency to use? We do not yet know, but
We do not.
I assume that's where we're going. Slight tangent. Living somewhere like America, you can go on like a road trip. You can be like, well, I'm going to drive across the country, and you're doing it for several days, etc. In the UK, if you're like, right, I'm going to have a road trip and drive across the country, you've done it in less than a day.
Yep.
Like 6 to 8 hours, and you are good.
I think it's
Completed it.
8 hours to get from...
I've driven
the UK
from
to
the
Scotland.
south of England to Scotland, yeah, in, I think it was 6.5.
Ooh, foot down.
Ish. If there's any police officers listening. Son, in your research notes, you've written, how are you doing, son? Would you like a rum? Sure. I am doing good. That has nothing to do with the case.
Being nice today.
All right. Well, you could be nicer. You could have had a rum there, ready to offer me after saying, do you want one?
I was kind of half expecting you to have one and then go, no, I've got one, fine, thanks.
Yeah, I was on a coffee, which I've now finished. And I'd like some sort of drink. What are you going to do? You help a brother out?
Sure.
You're offering me nothing. Don't suggest whatever you just thought.
The entire crew would divert their attention to the left and caught sight of two odd red lights in the sky. As they continued to look, they would notice that the lights seemed to be heading towards them.
He's coming right for us.
Javier would contact the control tower concerned about the object that was heading towards them. But control tower were perplexed. They couldn't see anything on the radar apart from the plane.
Ooh.
Javier wasn't going to wait to see if control had any advice on how to proceed. He just took the situation into his own hands like a boss.
Damn right.
Like Kevin.
Oh, yeah. He's got people to save.
He decided to change the course of the plane and to also descend slightly. He also radioed a nearby airport in Manises. I think that's Manises. It is now Manises, Valencia, and requested permission to make an emergency landing. As he was contacting control, the crew were keeping an eye on the lights. To their shock, amazement, and horror, the lights would change direction to continue following the plane. It would maintain the pursuit of the plane until about 50 kilometers from Manises runway before it suddenly changed its direction again and stopped chasing.
Ooh. So it got quite close to this airport. Does that mean that we have potential witnesses that would have seen it other than the captain?
The crew members on the plane?
Anyone from the ground? Because where my mind is going, if people on the ground saw it, we know something was in the sky. If only the people in the plane saw it from the cockpit, it could have been like a mark on the
window.
Yeah. That's happened many a time. Could have been a bug that splattered, like when one catches your windscreen when you're driving.
True. I happened to manifest something the other day. I was driving to work
Right.
And a bird nearly hit my car.
Right.
And then I saw 2 birds in front of me and I went, fucking bird's going to hit my car, isn't it? What happened? Bird fucking smashed into my windscreen.
No. Did it crack it?
Nah.
Oh, you're lucky. You must have been going the speed limit then.
Bounced off though. I always go the speed limit.
You looked at me there like a naughty school child who's just been caught, like copying someone else's work.
I would never do such a thing, and I always drive the speed limit. With my seatbelt on.
To be fair, we keep joking about this. I've literally never had a speeding ticket in my life.
Aren't you lucky? Just means you haven't been caught.
Wow.
Well, you did just admit to speeding on the way to Edinburgh.
Not Edinburgh, just the border of Scotland, just past Newcastle.
Scotland. Fair enough. By the way, I have also never been caught speeding. Just realised it made it sound like
your silence sounded like you had hundreds of speeding tickets.
Never been
a lifetime of bans behind you.
I don't speed.
So the lights on this craft.
Did
they stay red?
They stayed red.
Because that's not unusual for planes and helicopters, but mainly planes, to have red flashing lights, or red lights in general. If they were changing colours to all sorts of random colours, I'd be a little bit more curious on that front.
More?
Yes, more.
This whole ordeal would last around 30 minutes. The plane was now on the runway.
That's totally your sex tape.
Not a bad time.
Right, ordeal is a bad word, isn't it?
Depends how you put it.
I might take that statement back. This horror show lasted around 30 minutes. I'm tired too, alright?
The plane was now on the runway and the lights seemed to have vanished. But on their radar, not 1, not 2, but 3 other signals would appear.
Oh, shit!
Not only would these signals be seen on radar, but several airport staff would witness something. Thinking it was another plane coming in to land, they lit up the runway for them, but nothing came in to land.
So they did see it. Wasn't a mark on the cockpit.
The authorities would be notified of the strange lights, and shortly after midnight, they sent a Mirage F1 from Los Llanos Air Base. And just for you, there is a picture of a Mirage F1.
Okay. Before I comment on anything to do with the case, I'd just like to confirm that I am good. Thank you.
Good.
And I'm a boss, apparently. There's going to be like an insult hidden right at the end somewhere.
Is there?
Okay, so on notes of the case, they scrambled a jet to investigate. Just one jet?
Just one.
So they were sure that if there was definitely something there, you'd expect a far bigger response. The fact they've sent only one jet, that's curious.
That's curious as in they're being curious?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess.
Or curious that they sent one and not more?
Both. If they definitely detected several things, they know that some things in the sky, or several somethings are in the sky. I'm foreseeing a bigger response being sent to deal with the issue before it does harm.
To be fair, we only know that the plane's radar picked that up. We have nothing from Mission Control saying they picked up the 3.
But the military have sent something in. But only one thing, and they've had the reports, presumably, of several things on someone's radar.
Yeah.
So the fact they've sent only one, I'm wondering whether it's their own technology, perhaps, and they're just checking that it's working as it should be, hence only sending one to see what's going on, or that they've got other data that says that it's bullshit, but they're just double checking that it isn't something that skipped radar, so they're just sending a scout in.
I see what you
mean. Yeah, if it was definitely something they didn't know about, I'd just expect a bigger response.
The Mirage was sent out to investigate and see if it could find the odd craft. Captain Fernando Camara is the name of the pilot in the Mirage.
The name's Camara.
Fernando.
Porsche. Camara.
Fernando would search diligently, flying at speeds reaching over Mach 1.
This isn't Mach 10.
Didn't get a bullet in his bubble goose either. And it wouldn't be long before he clocked sight of the strange lights. The lights appeared to be part of a cone-shaped object. As Fernando would close in on the object, it sped off at speeds too fast for the Mirage to catch it. He didn't give up though, and a short time later he would receive a radar signal and then would visually clamp eyes on it again. This time, as he got closer to the object, it didn't speed off. But his controls seemed to malfunction and became unresponsive shortly after. The craft would then speed off again, and as it did, Fernando's controls came back online.
Oh, we've heard similar before.
Fernando wasn't phased and would remain in the air for around an hour and a half before returning to base with the object's potential last known location as somewhere off the Spanish coast heading towards the African continent.
I'm sorry, I've just got to interject here to say this pilot is as cold as frickin' ice. His controls became unresponsive and he didn't give a damn.
Willing to sacrifice.
He's got ice running through his veins. My gosh.
Iceman. The staff of the airport, the pilots, and everyone involved was asked not to discuss what had happened that night, as they didn't want it to become public. But this was getting harder and harder to keep under wraps, because people don't know how to keep their mouths shut, which is great for us. And in September 1980, the Spanish Parliament would demand not only an investigation, but a public explanation of the incident. The author of the book Incidente en Manises, J.J. Benitez, would interview Captain Tej about what he saw. He also spoke to his co-pilot, who also corroborated his story. I knew that picture was coming, so I got the giggles just before he ended it.
Mr. Moonwalker has stuck a photo in research notes of former Premier League football manager Rafa Benitez.
Tej and his co-pilot went on to say that whatever this object was, it wasn't a plane. Tej had over 8,000 flying hours and had a good knowledge of aircraft. Tej would also state that although he took the decision to land the plane, it was the control tower that made the decision to keep him grounded until the following day.
So, was this case just reported in this book and everyone else picked up it from there? Or was this in the news at the time?
It was in the news as well.
Okay, that's good. That's helpful. That's more credible, perhaps, because I was starting to worry that we've only got one source for this, and it's basically this chap who's written the book has said all these things happened.
To be fair, he went on to write the book after doing some investigating.
Okay. Like I say, that feels a little bit more credible. I'm still shocked that that chap in the plane lost controls and was fine with it. If the moment my panel stops working, I'm jumping out of that plane. See ya! I'll see you there, player! Nope. Especially if I'm looking at a traffic cone that's flying. What? Have we ever covered anything that shape before? Or was that just the shape of the lights?
I think that might have just been part of the craft that he could see.
It could have been traffic coney underneath. That could have been the cigar, I guess, moving quickly.
Or he might have been looking at the
Mamba
back of the craft.
It's got a traffic cone on the back in case it has an accident.
In terms of, I don't know actually. I was going to say if there was multiple ones, it could just be like the, because they don't have exhausts, the jets.
Okay, and the traffic cone headed to Africa.
It was heading
in that direction. Yeah, I mean, we've covered before submergible civilization / UFOs, haven't we? The idea being that there's a more advanced civilization being underwater that send crafts up every now and then, and they disappear into the ocean. And we've covered cases where crafts have been seen to pop in and out of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So we could be looking at something. Imagine, like, we obviously evolved the way we evolved. Fish came onto land and whatnot. Imagine there is a separate group of people that evolved in the water. Fish became superfish, became Zoras.
The civilization of Zoras.
Kingdom of fish people. And we just have no idea about it. Till one day the Zora King gets unwell.
Trying to think, do they live, or should I say, would they live?
It could be everywhere. Could be just like how the land is populated. The sea could be populated just in places we haven't got far enough down.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it to the depths that we can't actually travel to?
I mean, that's what I'm suggesting at this moment.
Or
yeah.
James Cameron can.
I quite like that as a theory to explain what UFOs are. Crab people.
The story was put out differently depending on which paper was reporting it, whether it was local or national. And another thing was that it changed depending on who the information came from, civilian or military. This made Benitez suspicious.
You've put another picture in there of Rafa Benitez, the football manager, looking like a mib. He's even got a neuralizer. Was it neuralizer or a nebulizer? I can never remember.
Neuro.
Oh, where's he got one of them from? It's definitely real. Okay, and you've given me some newspaper clippings as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't read Spanish, so there's not much I can say about this further than that it does appear to be showing a bunch of planes and some sort of emergency aviation event involving a commercial airliner. Okay.
The passengers had another theory. They believed that something was wrong with the plane. Again. And that they had to land to get the problem fixed. Now, you wouldn't think anything of this and would think, if there's an issue, land and sort it. However, due to the possible issue, the airline would be forced to pay out compensation to all the passengers on the plane.
I just thought of literally that when you said the last sentence. And I was going to be coming in with that hot. Darn it.
So they believe that this story was concocted as a way of not having to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
There is also not one single story from a passenger of the plane in regards to the object. None of them witnessed a single thing. The authorities would dismiss this claim as rubbish, the claim by the passengers that is, and have praised Captain Tej for his quick thinking and actions. But what did the real authorities think? Well, in 1994, the report was declassified.
Oh.
It insisted that Tej was mistaken in what he saw and that it was probably stars or planets.
Oh, not again.
Remember, Tej had over 8,000 hours flying time. You'd think that he'd know stars and planets when he sees them.
It's Captain Tenju all over again. Tenju, we stand with you.
It was insisted that Fernando was mistaken in what he saw and that he probably saw stars or planets. Captain Fernando saw stars or planets. As you'd expect, both of them reject this ridiculous notion. Now, how do you explain the issues with Fernando's plane? Well, it's stated that it could have been caused by the US 6th Fleet stationed off the Spanish coast, who were using powerful electronic warfare equipment. This was also dismissed by Fernando. Fernando says that the equipment jammed Fernando says that the equipment jamming was just as he was about to launch a missile towards his target.
Whoa.
Which begs the question, was his target otherworldly or from another country?
Mm-hmm.
Now this is the part of the probe where we would usually turn to science and skepticism. But we've covered that within the probe itself. So, to summarise, we have the case of the Manises UFO. A passenger plane that was travelling from Austria to Spain was en route when they received a transmission to change their signal to an emergency one. As they did, some of the crew would notice strange lights to their left. As they continued to watch, they would notice the lights were heading towards them. The pilot would radio control tower asking what to do, but they didn't see any other craft on the radar. Pilot Tej took matters into his own hands and manoeuvred the plane only to find the lights followed them. They managed to notify a nearby airport and make an emergency landing. Then the lights left. Something was witnessed by the airport staff, and thinking another plane was making an emergency landing, they put the runway lights on. But there was nothing there. A Mirage F1 was scrambled to investigate, and after a while it found the lights, which then sped off. The F1 continued its search and found it again, but this time their controls would fail before the craft would speed off again. As it did, the controls would come back on. The F1 would continue searching for another 90 minutes before giving up and returning to base. Those involved were told to hush, but over time, information got out and Parliament demanded an investigation. A journalist who would go on to write a book would investigate and interview the pilots and get their accounts. The passengers of the plane didn't believe the story they were hearing, but the aviation authorities did and praised the pilot Tej. But in 1994, when the full report came out, it would seem whoever investigated this was skeptical of an alien craft being involved. So Greybeard, you handsome bastard, do you believe that this was an alien craft or something else? Pirate ship.
Could have seen some sort of mirage. So, going on from the compensation idea with the
passengers.
Yeah. On top of that, have you seen stories in the media over the last couple of years, conspiracy theories about airline manufacturers, very, very big global companies assassinating people due to issues, like to cover up the issues that are known in their companies and whatnot?
I think Boeing
I wasn't going to name them because I don't want to be assassinated, but you go ahead.
Huge one.
So I was thinking something like that could be on top. They know they've got an issue and they don't want to make it public, so the alien story gives them further excuse to land, prevents the compensation, sweeps that under the rug at the same time. They could have zapped Fernando themselves to further enhance the credibility of that story. I was trying to think of reasons why the US military would potentially fire a weapon, and I can't see them doing that because that would incite war. So it feels like an inside job from that perspective to me, and a cover-up, a conspiracy of sorts. I don't think this pilot saw planets, because I just think that's ridiculous when you're talking about experienced pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's very, very novice to think that things are stars and planets. And when you're seeing things move at different angles, no matter where you go, they're still moving around as well. They're not just staying in one place. Yeah, so I don't buy into the stars and planets theory. So yeah, I'm leading conspiracy at this juncture.
Okay. On to the point about the US and using the technology. I wonder if they were testing something, like they were testing a craft itself and they only used the jammers because he said he was about to fire a missile.
Yeah.
So at that point, they were like,
to prevent war.
to prevent that, we will
You're
use
not
like an
supposed to know
EMP.
we're here testing this. Yeah, we don't want to kick things off.
The government might have known that they were testing a craft, or the military might have known they were testing something, but maybe they weren't expecting that plane to be coming in and to see it, or something like that. So that's a possibility.
Yeah. I could accept that one as well. Remind me, did any of the passengers see the craft?
None of them saw a thing.
That is unusual, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially if you're, I suppose when you're on a plane and you're going somewhere and all of a sudden the plane starts moving in a different direction, you'd wonder, and you might look out the window.
And when you're on a plane, there's usually 3 seats on either side of the aisle, isn't there? So at some point, one of those 3 people on each row is usually looking out of the window, if not more, because it's just there's not a huge amount to do on a plane. You sit there and watch the shit film, you eat the curry at 12 o'clock at night, or you look out the window.
Or sleep.
Yeah. So, that's a lot of potential witnesses that we don't have. That makes me a bit sceptical that this thing happened at all. There's not enough to suggest aliens here for me, but I'm kind of splitting my bum on the fence as to whether I think it's a bit of BS and not much at all happened, or whether I think it was some sort of military exercise.
I'm in the same boat. I cannot pick whether I believe it's a cover up by the airline that something was wrong with the plane and they didn't want to pay out, or there was a military operation going on and they used that as an excuse.
Maybe both.
I'm going to have to pick one. I'm going with airline cover up.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm leaning slightly heavier that way.
Yeah, just because none of the passengers saw anything. I think if at least one of them had seen something, I would have gone over to the military side.
They could have paid everyone involved millions potentially to cover it up, or not even millions, whatever they needed, thousands, bought them a house, secured their family's future, or they could have threatened their family's future to get people to go along with the story. I'm not saying that happened, but it just feels more likely than it being aliens with the evidence at hand.
Airline cover-up. Thank you for joining us for this week's probe. I'm the king of the street grannies, and he is tired. And so am I. You can find us across all socials at But It Was Aliens. That's Insta, Facebook, and on the Twitter.
On the Twitter?
On Facebook, in a hidden location, which we're now going to disclose to you, you can find a page called Extraterrestrial Towers. You can find like-minded souls, mummy memes. Don't tell anyone, but tell everyone. And over on patreon.com/butitwasaliens, you can find side probes, where we probe things outside of the extraterrestrial. Ghost dogs, ghost boats, ghost pirates, ghosts that listen to Princess Peg, Rasputin's dick. No, that episode wouldn't be out now, so I'm not going to say it just yet.
It'll be out next month when this episode releases, presumably.
And
We're
Skunk
recording
Ape.
this a month in advance. It'll come out the day after this episode, I think, if my calculations are correct. Either the day of or the day after.
And his calculations are normally correct. He is a very intelligent guy. Remember, truth is up there.
Stop being nice.
#probe. See? I made it through the entire episode, didn't insult you once.
I'm now scrolling to see if there's a hidden insult at the end. There's nothing.
#probe. Best of bestest friends.
You twat.